this usage of ish to mean more than just man, but to mean a relationship, whether that be in a leader relationship or a husband relationship or a member of a larger group, this is part of ancient Israel's conceived identity. They are not nearly as individualistic as modern 21st century individualistic American worldview. That's not how we need to read this back into the Bible. They didn't think of themselves in the same individualistic way that we did. So we need to respect the meaning of ish as something that's embedded within the family, the tribe, the covenant community. This is how they thought of their identities. Hello, everyone. Frank Hartman here from Biblical Mastery Academy. I want to talk with you today about a very common noun that we find universally very early in many grammars, one of the first Hebrew vocabulary words we ever learned. And yet, when we start to read the Hebrew Bible, we see that this word is used in more nuanced ways than what we might learn originally from the grammar. That word is the word ish, a very common word that is generally glossed as man or husband. And what we find is that when we start to read the Hebrew Bible, it's used in a much different way as to just a man, but more in this relational sense. If you pick up any dictionary or lexicon, you'll probably see the same gloss at the first, adult male or man or husband, and that's what most readers expect. But this conventional view is actually a bit misleading. Because most modern linguistic analysis and semantic studies of the Hebrew Bible show that ish functions in a way that is not reflective of just a man standing alone, but it overwhelmingly conveys this idea of a relationship or affiliation, someone's husband, a member of a tribe, or a representative of a group. Now, dictionaries, lexicons, certainly they're essential tools, but Harold Scanlon wisely said, the last place to look for the meaning of a word is in the dictionary. Dictionaries summarize centuries of tradition, translation choices, but what they don't do is they don't capture the primary semantic function of words as they were actually used in ancient texts. And so in the case of ish, nearly every major lexicon, BDB, Halot, TDOT, you look the word ish up in those lexicons and you'll find that the primary meaning is man or adult male. And many of them, of course, extend this to a person or a husband, but the underlying assumption is still individuality and biological maleness. And yet, when we look at the usage of the word ish in the Old Testament, what we see is that 74% of the time, ish refers to any or each member of a defined group or class. Now, 20% of the time, it does refer to an individual, man or husband. But that leaves only 5% kind of being in an undefined use. And that really is 3/4 of the time that we see ish used. It's not about singling out individuality, but situating someone within a group. And you don't really get that picked up from looking the word up in a lexicon. It's just not really brought out well. Part of the evidence that shows that ish really reflects more of a term of affiliation than an individual is the fact that ancient Israelite society was profoundly group-oriented. Identity was tied to their household or their clan or their tribe. Social order depended on family bonds, kinship ties, communal responsibility. And so people were rarely conceptualized as independent actors. In this cultural context, ish naturally functions as a marker of affiliation. So when a text says, ish mi Israel, an ish from or an ish of Israel, it's not highlighting an individualized, a isolated individual, but it's identifying someone as part of the Israelite collective. So similarly, phrases like ish bayeto, each member of his household, emphasizes group membership. Even when no explicit group is mentioned, the audience is expected to infer that affiliation. And so, for instance, in Numbers 15:32, we have an ish found gathering sticks on the Sabbath. The narrative doesn't say he was an Israelite, yet the law applies only to Israel. And the word ish already signals he's a member of the covenant community. No further specifications needed. So that's why it's better understood as affiliate or a participant or a member rather than just simply the base understanding of the word man. It's a linguistic reflection of Israel's relational worldview. To better understand the relational meaning of ish, what we can do is compare it to two other nouns that are very similar in meaning, that being Adam and Ben. Adam refers to humanity in general. It is kind of a species identifier in the Hebrew Bible. It's never countable, meaning we'd never see it associated with a number. It's never pluralized, and it doesn't normally denote membership in a subgroup. What it does is it describes humanity as who we are by nature, but not by social bonds. Ben, on the other hand, the word for son, is explicitly relational. It always identifies someone as belonging to someone else in a relationship. Ben Yisrael, son of Israel, or Benai Yisrael, the sons of Israel, or Ben David, the son of David. So you can't use Ben as a word without that relational nuance being brought into it. And so really, Ish is closer to Ben than it is to Adam. It really brings that nuance of relationship along with it. And so when texts describe Banai Yisrael, the sons of Israel, a single member is often called an Ish, not a Ben. And so, for instance, Joshua 9:6 does this with Ish mi Yisrael, and it defines a typical Israelite. Not, it doesn't use Ben to define a typical Israelite. It uses the word Ish because of that relational connection with Israel as a people. So this suggests that Ish also functions as a relational noun. Sometimes it situates the referent within a broader collective. And if you look at, for instance, the use of Ish in the story of Noah's Ark, the animals are described as Ish va'ishto, each with its mate. Now, we're not even talking about humans here, right? We're talking about animals, and yet the word Ish is used to describe the relationship of these animals with their mate or as a member of a pair or a group. And so when we see that word, we need to understand that the meaning is being expressed by its usage, not necessarily by its gloss in a lexicon. So of these primary ways of looking at Ish in association or in relationship, we can break them down into three categories. We can understand why translators have difficulty then with these different ways of understanding Ish. But if we look at them in these three categories, that will help us understand how it's being used. The first one is as a participant member. So this is when Ish denotes a party to an event or a contract or a relationship. So obviously one of the very common uses of ish is a husband. And so this is one of those participant member usages because they are participating, they are a participating party in the marital bond. And so in legal settings, this is often used either in the singular or plural to identify people who are bound by covenant obligations. Deuteronomy 19:17 is a good example of this, where the primary parties, the two anashim, which anashim is the plural of ish, and it's going to do the same kind of thing that ish does. Anashim is just going to be pluralized, but those primary parties in a legal dispute are going to be described in that way. The second way we can understand ish is as a representative member of another group, and this is the each kind of usage that maybe you've already been exposed to, you've seen in lexicons or a Hebrew grammar. And so this one is used obviously quite often. The distributive sense particularly appears, let's say, in an example like Genesis 13:11, where Abram at that time, and Lot, they separate. Each member separated from his brother. So they separated from their brother, their relationship. The group is defined by their kinship as family. And the ish singles out each constituent individual member. So here, that ish carries much more meaning than just a man. Yes, they're men, but that's not all of the meaning that's being exemplified by the verse. In fact, in that representative member category, we can even look at non-human sets. So when we look at something like Leviathan's scales described in Job 41:9 as Ish Bahiav, we can see that that's each joined to each other. Those scales of Leviathan, part of a bigger group of scales, are each joined to the other. The word there is ish. And so this is looking particularly at a representative member of a larger group. Finally, that third category we could look at is that they are a representative on behalf of others. So many times ish is used as one who identifies as someone who acts for the group, a leader, an envoy, a patriarch. In Genesis 30:43, we see that Jacob's wealth is described with Vayif Rotz Haish Ma'od Ma'od. It is increased greatly. And here Jacob is more than just the male individual. He's the household head, representing that entire family. Similarly, when Joseph selects the 5 anashim, again the plural of ish, to meet Pharaoh in Genesis 47:2, they serve as delegates representing all the brothers. These representatives nuance this natural extension of the affectional meaning of a group. So those are the 3 categorical ways that we can kind of see the additional meaning of ish brought to bear. So what implications does this bring to our reading of the Hebrew Bible in Hebrew? When we recognize ish as a relational term, it's going to change some of our biblical interpretations, at least from maybe some of the traditional interpretations. For instance, in Judges 20, verse 8, the phrase Ka'ish Achad, as one man. If we look at the ESV has it exactly that, as one man. And yet the Net Bible does recognize this nuanced version or understanding of Ish, and translates Judges 20, verse 8, as all Israel rose up in unison. And that's the way it ought to be. It should be rendered as a single unified group. It's not just man, it's as a group because of the relationality of the word ish. Now, in covenant laws, for instance, when it says ish ma Israel, all of the men of Israel, many times, and to be honest, a lot of modern English translations are honoring this, in that it doesn't distinguish men from women. So, like, there wasn't part of the covenant laws that just applied to men. Well, there are some that do, but it's very explicit. But just because the word ish is used doesn't mean it's only for men and the women it doesn't apply to. It indicates any member of Israel, any part of the group, the larger group of Israel, is subject to the law. And I think that makes sense. We understand that, right? The men and the women of ancient Israel were subject to the law. Not that they didn't have specifics amongst each of them, the males and the females, but when it comes to the general law, it's often used as ish, and yet we understand that it meant male or female. So it could be the people of Israel. You'll see a lot of English translations use people of Israel for that. And and then, so this distributive meaning very often explains why the instructions use ish where English would use each or every person. It just seems logical when you see certain Old Testament laws applying to what, just the men? That didn't make sense, and so I think we recognize that when we read it, but we don't want to just look at ish and make it mean just men. If your interpretation limits that to just men, then your interpretation needs to take advantage of this larger understanding. So this usage of ish to mean more than just man, but to mean a relationship, whether that be in a leader relationship or a husband relationship or a member of a larger group. This is part of ancient Israel's conceived identity. They are not nearly as individualistic as modern. I'll just say, because I'm from America here, as a modern 21st century individualistic American worldview. That's not how we need to read this back into the Bible. They didn't think of themselves in the same individualistic way that we did. So we need to respect the meaning of ish as something that's embedded within the family, the tribe, the covenant community. This is how they thought of their identities, as a personal agency framed through the relationships of loyalty and representation in their particular group. So to recap, over 80% of the biblical uses of ish are used to indicate an affiliation, not solitary individuality. It functions in the sense of a participant or a representative member or a delegate. It's often encompassing non-human members of a set as well. So the traditional translation, just man, it's not wrong in every case. Many times it is man, but that is certainly the minority in usage. And when we just keep it to that wooden translation, we obscure the relational core of the word that every Israelite would have understood as they read the scriptures, as they heard the scriptures read to them. They would have understood this, and it is in our best interest as genuine readers of scripture who seek its meaning. We need to respect that and be made aware of the way the ancient Israelites thought of it. So seeing ish in this way, I think, enriches our reading of Scripture. It helps us hear that ancient Hebrew worldview where identity and action were understood communally. And so when you encounter ish in the Bible the next time, I encourage you to think beyond that base understanding of ish means man. Instead, imagine someone bound to others or representing others and belonging to a larger whole. So if you found this exploration of this single word ish helpful, I hope you subscribe to our channel. We are striving to do more deep dives into biblical Hebrew like this, and to really show you how reading the Bible in Hebrew can bring so much more to your devotional reading of the Bible, your analytical reading of the Bible, your studious reading of the Bible. However you are reading the Bible at any point, it brings more value to you if you can read the Bible in its original languages. So I encourage you to sign up for our newsletter, be a part of our mailing list, where we will also delve into other topics like this. And I hope you find that this is helpful, and I'll see you the next time.